This is our PowerPoint presentation of Energy Sources of the Future by Benjamin Chou and Marcus Thefeld. Possible energy sources of the future include wind energy, solar energy, and nuclear energy. These are energy sources already being used present day, and within the future will possibly be relied on more heavily and become a more used energy source. Our first energy source is wind energy. Wind energy is one of the most fascinating energy sources that is available to us today. Wind energy is a renewable source in which wind will there will be abundance always be abundance of wind. When using wind energy, there's no pollutants created. Uh, is one of Wind energy is considered one of the most positive economic energy sources. Wind energy is already being harvested in America by giant windmills all over mostly what is central United States. Within central United States, there are giant windmills within the Great Plains in which to pick up high speed winds, at which speed winds can exceed speeds of 50 miles per hour, creating enough energy for these windmills to pick up to power cities and towns. And many of these towns rely on these windmills to provide them with their electricity source. This shows how efficient windmills are and can be relied on to power many things in many places.
Some negatives about wind energy is that the wind, unlike other forms of weather, isn't as predictable and therefore it's not as reliable. So if we have a day where there's not enough wind to power the windmills, then there's not going to be any electricity generated and there'll be no power going to where it needs to go. So we'd have to find a way to have power harnessed and saved for when we have days like this when there's no wind. Also, windmills are not visually appealing, and we're not able to build. Look, for example, with solar panels, we can have them in someone's backyard, but no one wants a giant 50 plus foot windmill standing in their yard. It's not appealing, and that's why most of them are out in the middle of the desert where no one's living there, so it doesn't bother them. Solar energy. Solar energy tends to be extremely economically efficient, and after a certain amount of years, they actually end up paying for themselves, and then that's when you start to save money on them. It's a renewable energy source. Sunlight will always be here. We're always going to have the sun, and especially in areas like Arizona, the sunlight is very abundant, and we can really thrive off the energy produced from that sunlight. Solar panels are extremely reliable. They have very few working parts. They don't break very easily, and they're extremely easy to install. Also, there are no reoccurring costs for solar panels. They don't need to be upkept. They don't need to be repaired. They pretty much come as you see them, and they work very efficiently. Some negatives about solar energy, some of the very few negatives. Like I said before, it takes a long time for the solar panels to actually pay for themselves, and for the average American, it's very hard to be able to purchase um, an expensive solar panel and be able to have it in their home because it takes forever for it to pay itself back. It's a long-term investment, so it takes a while, and it's not very practical for most people just to go out and buy one. Most people would rather just pay the bill monthly instead of having to pay a large amount up front and have to wait for it to come back.
Our next energy source is nuclear energy. Nuclear energy is one of the most controversial energy sources available to us today. Nuclear energy is being is one of the most is being used in America today with hundreds of nuclear power plants across America powering cities and towns, and is an extremely efficient energy source and is considered an extremely powerful energy source with with one uranium pellet being able to do the work of hundreds of gallons of oil. And it nuclear energy, a positive of nuclear energy is, besides the possible risks that it comes with using nuclear energy, it is actually very environmentally safe because it doesn't have pollutants when it creates energy, and it recycles and uses its own water. So there's no pollutants that come out from creating energy with nuclear energy. Nuclear energy, though, has a lot of negatives that makes it very controversial. Some might ask whether these negatives outweigh the positives, the energy that might bring. It may bring energy to thousands, but it can also destroy lives of thousands within one catastrophic moment. For example, in the tsunamis in Japan, Japanese tsunami, nuclear power plant was hit and radioactive water seeped into the Pacific Ocean, in which a cleaning crew had to be assembled and get rid of the contaminated water within the fresh water, which severely hurt the environment. It's like, nuclear energy being used is extremely risky, and it has such a high possible risk to cause massive destruction to environment and cities, that really is an energy source, making it an energy source for the future until we find safer, more ways to use this energy. Before that time, we will still be using energy sources with nuclear power plants popping up all over America to this day.
So, in conclusion, we can use these three types of sources for an extremely long amount of time. We're not going to run out of the sunlight anytime soon. We're not going to run out of wind anytime soon. Unlike oil, which we have to keep searching for, we have to keep drilling for, to keep finding more because we're just simply using too much. Um, all these sources of energy are much more sustainable, they're much more reliable, and we have a much larger abundancy of them. So now we just need to figure out a way to make solar and wind energy um, more abundant and practical, and we need to find a way to have most people's homes powered by at least one of these three things in order to be more efficient than we are now.